Here we have an example from section 3.2 in which we're going to construct a truth table for the statement the negation of P and the negation of Q. And I've gone ahead, I'm using just the general approach to constructing truth tables. There are some alternative approaches listed in your book, and you're welcome to follow those as well. But what we have here is a conjunction. So the final answer that we'll fill in would be this column under the conjunction symbol. And to come up with all of our cases, you'll want to get in the habit of, there will be 4 cases when I have 2 statements. And I will begin by the first statement P can either be true or false, but we want to make sure and we account for all of our different cases. So you'll always want to start this column with true, true, false, false. And then if you always start your second column or second statement with the cases of, alternate them, true, false, that will give you every combination of trues and falses. So if you'll just get in the habit of that every time with 2 statements, you'll be in good shape. Now we'll look at, well, what then would make the truth value of the negation of P. If P is true, the negation of P would be false. Same here. If P is false, however, the negation of P would be true, and then same here. And then I'm going to fill out, well, what would the negation of Q be? So if Q is true, false, false, true, true, false, true, false, the negation of Q would be false, true, false, true, the opposite truth value. And then if you'll look in your textbook, it describes conjunctions where the only time that a conjunction is true is if both statements are true. So the only time that this would be true would be in this fourth case. The other cases would be false. And that does become the answer column. Sometimes you'll see that highlighted in the textbook, but that gives you all of the different cases and ways that this statement would be true or false. Now let's look at a second problem where we're asked to construct a truth table for the statement Q or negation of P. So we'll do the same thing as before. We have 2 simple statements here in which we would begin the P column with true, true, false, false, Q, true, false, true, false, and that gives us all 4 cases and combinations for those 2 statements being either true or false. So then I would repeat the Q column. The Q column is true, false, true, false. I want the negation of P here. The negation of P would be false, false, true, true. A disjunction will be false only when P and Q are both false, or the first and second statement are both false. So that only appears here. This case would be false, but in every other case it would be true. So that would end up being your answer column. And now let's look at a truth table in which we have 3 different statements, a P, Q, and an R. And we want to construct the truth table for Q or P or the negation of R. And so actually the last column that we're going to fill out is this one. It ends up being a disjunction. And the way that we set up truth tables when we have 3 different statements, we're actually going to have 8 separate cases. So under the P column, you'll want to first use 4 trues and 4 false. Under the Q column, you're going to want to alternate by 2s, beginning with true, true, so then false, false, true, true, false, false. And in the R column, we're going to alternate every other one. So true, false, true, false, true, false. And that will give us every combination of those three different statements being either true or false. Now that that's filled out, as we look over here, first I want to copy the Q column. So true, true, false, false, true, true, false, false. Next I'm going to come in here and copy the P column, which is true, 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 false, 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 false. Might help if you're on some lined paper. And then we want the negation of R. So instead of true, false alternating in that fashion, we're going to begin with false, since it's the opposite of true. It would be false, true, false, true, false, true, false, true. And now let's fill in for the disjunction here. Remember that for a disjunction is only false if both statements are false. So we can come through here and find these are both false, these are both false, and in every other case we have at least one true statement. So everything else will be true. And then to fill out this disjunction column, we're actually comparing this column with the answer for this set of parentheses, which was this disjunction column. Let me highlight those so you can see them a little better. So we're looking here and here, and if I have the disjunction between those two statements, then we want to again look for it's only false where both statements are false. So here would not work, here either. Actually, I only have one case where both statements are false. And then everything else will be true. So actually the answer column for this problem falls here.